Oh, shoot. Sorry. It's my fault because I'm in the wrong. But there he is. Hi, Lowell, can you hear us?
Morning, Lowell.
I was already on, but I guess a different link. So,
That's my error. I'm sorry, Lowell.
oh, that's okay.
Okay, are you taking?
Yes.
Okay. I'd like to call the August 9th, 2024 City of Geneva IDA meeting to order. Good morning, everyone. The mission statement, we don't have that? We should have brought it.
Why don't we skip ahead and
We're gonna skip ahead, okay. Administrative, there's some minutes from the last meeting in June. And then the then the July financial. We do not have a forum at this point, so we're not gonna vote on these. But we could certainly discuss the minutes if there was anything from the minutes from our June meeting that would be need to be changed so that we can we'll put it on the agenda for our September meeting to approve all these, and hopefully by then we'll have a good forum here. Any questions? Anything on the minutes that we saw that didn't seem?
No.
Okay, so let's move on to the GEDC, the update of the engineering study, where that is with
CNS. Yeah.
I always want to say S&C. I don't know.
Well, and then
CNS, please.
Yeah.
so CNS was in the building on the 7th on Wednesday, all day long. They got a, very extensive brain dump from Bob Ritter, and we're like, we need this guy all the time, which is great. He knows a lot about the building, was able to provide. We don't want to say anything is patched that's not really fixed. Like, let's get every single problem out. And it was clear with the team that we are not looking for like halfway. We want to really document everything that's wrong so that we can be in a good place going forward and not be in this situation now where, even we were on the tour, Bob was telling me that they were getting quotes on other kind of emergency things fixed, or sprinkler stuff or water stuff. And we just need to have it all together.
It's going to be nice to.
Yeah. So, it's a big undertaking. They had a team of about 10 people, mechanical, architecture, site. They're really giving it the full, I think they had 4 mechanical engineers looking at stuff. So I was impressed with the kind of force that they brought, and I hope that it will be really useful. It came up during that, and I think I talked to the two of you, but that there was a 3D scan of the building done that Bob walked around with. I think we said it's CJS, not CNS, who did that. And so I'm trying to track down that data to share it with the team, just to help. It'd be cool if they could incorporate the 3D modeling into stuff. It's not the most important, but if we've got it, we might as well make use of it. I was impressed on the tour actually with this. The gymnastics space is really coming along. They painted some of the walls and it was really clean in there. And I was a little worried about that starting, just because it's a very different use from what we had before. But it seems like it's going well.
The heat's not real good in that space, is it?
No.
Yeah. Oh, it's good. They're going to come to about 3 months to resolve something, I would assume.
My understanding is that they were comfortable with knowing that it's not going to be 70 degrees in there.
Okay.
And I think the rent is kind of
Reflective of that.
reflective of that, and they were comfortable with that trade-off, but I guess we'll see
Yeah,
how that goes.
yeah.
Oh, hold on.
And how they have access to the bathrooms that are down by the city space?
Yes.
DPW, is that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Lowell, can I send you a different link and have you jump over real quick? I made a mistake and our attorneys in the other room that you were probably in before.
Okay, well, I'm in this one that you just sent me. Is this okay?
Maybe, why don't I just send him this one?
Okay.
You look real good though, Lowell, I gotta tell you.
Yeah, I'm here with 3 children under 4.
Well, that's why.
That'll do it.
That's why.
So, yeah, well, I'm wide awake.
Okay.
So you
so
want me
you
to
said
jump
you're-
over, or is this one good?
You stay here and I just sent Steven this.
Oh.
Okay.
So I think that that's going well. I think they're gonna wrap up fairly quickly in the next few weeks with that.
After Labor Day, maybe.
Yeah. And hopefully that'll put us on a good trajectory for CFAs next year. Which kind of the grant writing period there is May to July, basically.
And obviously, if we go to the next step of wanting some grants written, then they would be in a good position to
Yeah.
step up.
Yeah.
Would be a real good position.
Yeah.
Okay. That's good. Lowell, do you have any questions about the engineering study?
No, if they had 10 people there for several hours and then an hour of travel time, I would say they've used half their fee, at least. So they better be quick.
Yeah, you're right. You're right. Okay. Does
That's Steven.
doesn't look like. Yeah, that's Steve. So
Yep.
Webster's are not on.
So Miles just messaged me that they had an emergency. His update is they have signed a lease with FLX.
Elementary wine.
Or the-
Elementary wine.
Yeah,
Whatever it is.
so FLX is gonna be taking the space between the kitchen and banner door,
But just the west
just
side.
the front. Yeah,
Right.
which is, they're tapping into the sewer there. They've met with the city. I think it's good that we're gonna be renting that space. He said that they were coming in a little low at $3 a square foot because they're gonna do all of the work.
You know, leasehold improvement.
Yeah. So I think it's good that we're gonna lease a big other portion of space. I did discuss with him that I was a little concerned that that is, it makes things difficult for using the space behind it. Using the space behind it is difficult anyway, but that's kind of taking,
One on the railroad side, you mean?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
Well, it has access, if that lane's kept open, it has access to the overhead doors and stuff.
Yeah,
That's good.
so it'd be good to increase our utilization of the building for sure.
Yeah, this is actually exciting. It's good news.
Yeah,
Right?
yeah.
Little Things that have
A
happened.
business that, you know, it's not a startup. He's moving from another location. They're fairly stable. It's good to see them growing. He is extending his kitchen lease with the city, which he has 2 more years of extensions. We were discussing that with the kind of phased increase in the rent just starting next year, his rent will be slightly more than what the city's paying the IDA for the space, which is an improvement because before it was actually less. The
Subsidized.
city was losing money on renting it out. I guess losing less money than if they weren't renting it out, in which case they'd be.
Right.
But we need to keep increasing that because we don't currently have any funds for reinvesting in the space for keeping up the equipment that's getting old now. even though it seems like we just
Yeah, I know which one.
built the whole thing, but it's gotten a lot of use.
Really,
But that's good news that, you know, to get a,
Elites really used the space. I mean,
Are, yeah.
they were packed in there just before they moved.
Mhm.
Yeah, good.
and I know that Banner Door was a little concerned about that because really it's had grown so fast, it made their operations difficult getting through because they were using a bunch of the space that they weren't renting.
A lot.
And they've been assured that that won't be the case with the winery situation, that they're gonna,
So they're gonna put a partition up?
yes, they're gonna put up a wall. We may need to think about doing another partition on the other side.
If we're gonna keep that space open for Banner,
Yeah,
and the only reason for that space being open is to have access to bathroom.
the loading dock,
They come in that way?
they do.
Okay, I thought
So they have,
they have the end door, but.
yes, Banner has a dock on the end, on the outside of the building that goes towards, what street is that?
Gates.
Yeah. That one, I guess, can only do their small trucks,
Got it.
and the big trucks, they have to load in at the main.
Okay.
And then they're hauling along, you know, pieces of metal and stuff down that hallway.
Okay. Any progress on the food justice space?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Any questions, Lowell,
No, I'm good. Thanks.
before we move on? Okay. Next thing on the agenda is the IDA budget. We need to appoint some members to the finance committee. Is that right?
That's right.
Also a committee that we're gonna have to reconvene is the nominating committee. Ben had said he would stay on until we found him a replacement, but we need to relook at that. So those are two committees we should put together or reconvene.
So I'm pulling up the current committee assignments.
Yeah, I'm on the nominating committee.
Yeah, Rick's still on there. Morning, Steve. How you doing?
Doing well. How are you?
Good.
So nominating committee, we have RJ, Irene, and Lowell. You don't have the budget committee on here. Is it the same as the auditing committee?
It is.
Okay, so that's Irene, RJ, and a vacancy.
Okay.
So who else would like to be on the auditing committee?
Jan just said she did.
Oh,
I don't know.
again,
It's,
budget.
I feel like I gotta get my feet a little
Yeah.
wetter before I can plow into something like that, actually. I mean, if you really need somebody, I'd learn my way through it, but
Lowell, Ann.
I think one of the new members should be on that committee.
Getting a lot of support here.
I guess,
No,
so.
Jan, you did show up, so you. can
I'm
say it
here.
should be Catherine.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, Catherine definitely has budget experience.
Yeah, Catherine
Yeah.
should be excellent. I have
To be
say.
fair.
She's not here to speak,
Yes,
so.
she has a headache now. Boy.
Hey, David, if it helps too, for some of the new members, I can bring to the next meeting our economic development handbook and then just kind of lay out, at least flag the IDA and LDC section. So for new members, if they just, it's kind of just a 101 of what IDAs are, what they do, and same thing with LDC. So I can bring that if that'll be helpful.
That would be great. Thank you.
Yeah, that would be great.
Yep.
We've emailed. I'm not sure it's even the most recent copy, but the most recent that I have version of that around. But it would be great to organize more of a training.
Yeah.
and a
Okay.
discussion. Yeah,
Yep.
Okay, so then you'll set up a time, these folks.
yeah.
Our October meeting is our annual meeting, right?
And we have to have the budget.
Yeah.
So that would be might be a good time to, because that's when we like do all of our policies
Mhm.
and signing off on all that stuff, so that might be a good time to do a little like 101
Yeah,
for September.
might be good to have it ahead of time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right, next. So you'll set up some time to get that going. Strategic plan. Oh, yeah, the public meetings and all the stuff that you're doing with Gary.
Yes,
There's a lot of activity on that.
there has been. We just had meeting 3 of the working group, and it was great to have Jan and Irene there, and we were really it was a long meeting with a lot of
Distractions.
digressions to policy issues outside of our control. And we need to take some time to focus on, what are we gonna do as this group? And I was hoping to do that in the meeting, and we kind of came out with, we need to spend time outside of this larger group, really thinking about what are the things that we're gonna do. I shared in the packet what Gary put together as a draft, and I want to really highlight that that's a draft and needs our input, our review, because there's stuff in there that doesn't make sense, and that's fine because it's a draft and we're gonna work on it and change it. I'd like to talk about that stuff today and think a little bit about it. There's 2 things that I put in the packet. One of them is basically he took our ranking and also added some things himself that he thought there were some things that we didn't rank highly. Hey. Yes. Sit anyway. Yeah. There were things that he considered necessary for us to do that weren't ranked highly, that like you can't do the things we ranked highly without doing some basic stuff, such as kind of having more kind of convening of the partners, having some plans that back up our direction, that kind of stuff. Our next step is there's a template in there that's blank that is essentially for each task that we have. I want us to take that task and fill out this template. What exactly are we going to do during which quarters? And then we can look at all of the things that we say we're going to do and have something that we can check in on as we move forward. Every time a quarter passes, did we achieve what we said we were going to achieve? It's okay if we don't, but we want to know that we didn't and know what the steps are going forward.
That's good.
The point of this is to be really specific about, if our goal is, to reduce vacancy, how are we going to do that? Are we going to meet with a certain number of businesses? Are we going to put together a program like Race for the Space? If we do that, what are the steps of that? It's, finding the landlords, doing the advertising. So we can break out the next 3 years of things associated with that. Again, I don't expect that to not change over the next 3 years. It's not setting anything in stone, but it's giving us the kind of organization that we need to stay on track and be moving in a positive direction.
So what I know yesterday when we were talking, I feel like there was a consensus that we would like to see some quick wins, right? What are those quick wins gonna be? And for our group, something that we talked about, and I'm not finding it on this list. I feel like it was there somewhere at some point. But Lowell's brought this up for a couple of years now, and I think this would be really good, is making sure we're touching our businesses right now. I know we have Catherine downtown who's touching businesses, but that's not all of the business in Geneva, right? So, maybe it's creating and implementing, because that we seem to miss that implementation part, right? A plan to touch businesses, because there's lots of benefits that come from that. And we've heard over the years that businesses feel like they're ignored by the city, right?
Yeah.
So maybe we could create.
No, absolutely.
Yeah, go ahead and, create and implement that plan. Whether it's, I was thinking this morning, monthly or quarterly, and then maybe it's we trade off organizations too. Maybe it's spread across everybody. So one month it's a representative from the IDA going out and touching everybody. And then the next month it's the LDC. Hey, I'm from the LDC. Here's what we do. You know, here's who we are. How are you doing? You know, all that kind of stuff. And I would love to be a part of that. So even what was, I forget Amy's verbiage from yesterday, but
Yeah,
I think this is something we should do. And
yeah, and Gary actually put it on the LDC's
I knew it was
schedule,
somewhere.
so I have no problem with saying that's something that we want to do. We should move it from there. From my conversations with the LDC, they aren't really headed in that direction. They've been more interested in kind of community activities, housing, and arts and building kind of activities, events, and they want to do a lot of work on housing. I do know that the county pays for a contractor who does reach out to every company with more than 5 employees that's not retail.
Could we get that from the county? What is in the city? I mean,
Yeah.
if that's already prepared, that was one of the things I said, to create a list of not just companies, but names.
Yeah.
Contact, if they already got that list,
Mhm.
it takes, they're done. We got one thing done.
And another, I know that has been something that I think the IDA was talking about when I first got here, is wanting to do that. That it's been on the agenda, and it's not easy.
No.
Yeah.
I know that the county contractor who does that, he tells me they have a hard time even getting in the door of places like Henkel, for example.
Sure.
That it can, or what is it? The canning food.
Seneca.
Yeah, Seneca Foods. That some of those places can be hard just to, you're showing up at a door as an unannounced, unplanned visitor.
Yeah, so what do you envision those sessions being like? Like what would the IDA person be there to discuss or help, and what happens to the feedback from that meeting, and
Yeah, I think from my perspective, it's literally just a touch. It's part of the retention process of like, we're here. This is who we are. We appreciate you. How's business going? We can create it as a market survey situation, to gather data. How's business? How's your workforce development going? How's
It could be teaming up with the county person. And some of the things that the county person does is, hey, we have this workforce training funding.
Yeah.
If you want to create jobs, we can help you train those people or develop a course at Finger Lakes Community College that will work with that. They get a little uptake on that, not always a lot, but it is nice to have a offer. But Stephen was also talking about wanting to do more of a, hey, we can create bonds. These are the kind of financial assistance offerings that the IDA could do to help drum up more of that business for us, because we need the fees as an organization to go forward. So putting together kind of a package around what are the things that we can do and what are the things that other people can do.
Yeah, David, I was just gonna say, if you guys are looking to kind of do like a roadshow type thing, I'd be more than happy to participate. And regarding some of those other companies that you're saying it might be somewhat difficult to kind of at least just get a foot in the door to have a conversation. If you have a list, just send it to me. It can't hurt for me to, start reaching out to some of the other folks in our firm. And if they have contacts, we can certainly try to at least spark up a conversation. So if you got a list of companies or employers that you're thinking about, obviously not right now, but whenever you accumulate that list, just shoot it over and I can start asking some questions.
We possibly invite that contractor to the next meeting
Sure.
and have him bring the list or whatever we can put on the agenda to just, if it's possible, if not, at least get the list.
Yeah.
And then we could share it with Steve, like you said, and I did, it's obviously our focus is going to be within the city, but there are, like you said, Seneca Foods is outside the city.
Yeah.
And there's some other, larger places that we might want to visit that are outside the city. And maybe, maybe we do split some of that with the LDC and us, we concentrate on, they concentrate on nonprofits or maybe tourist stuff, and we concentrate on manufacturing or,
Right.
retail business, or I don't know,
Mhm.
it's some sort of
Yeah,
focused
Right.
attention.
and that's the one thing that the county person doesn't do is they don't do any outreach to retail.
Right.
They're only interested in, the classic economic
Well,
development is
in
about
retail, we
export.
do have those grants that come out every year, smaller grants for
Mhm.
smaller businesses, and I know they're advertised and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But sometimes a personal delivery of that information
Definitely.
might be a nice,
Yeah.
nice,
Yeah.
nice.
Every time an announcement of awards come out, I get the emails of,
Why didn't I know?
how do I get this money?
Yeah.
I'm like, well,
Yeah.
next year.
Yeah, exactly. So I think that would, I think there is a program that can be let, and I don't think it can be a heavy lift, but it doesn't have to be if we share the load. But particularly if the county's already plowed some of this ground, we don't need to
Yeah.
reinvent this. I think that's good.
So I just added under the quick wins category. It was one of the things that I noticed in this thing that
We
was put
didn't have
together
any.
is we didn't have any. So I added or moved from the LDC list. Create a business visitation plan and schedule. I added that would be also a roadshow of the incentives we can offer.
Sure.
And the other thing is, this was actually Lowell's idea, so I think it makes sense that it ends up with us, is to initiate an annual awards program to celebrate
There you go,
successes.
Lowell.
and
You've made
achievements.
There you go.
You've made impact.
No.
That's a good one, because it's so public, I mean, when you say
Yeah.
quick win,
Mhm.
it's, people will see it,
And that positive
even
messaging
thought-
that we're all focused on. Sorry.
I even thought of funding the first one if we didn't have any money, because I think it's that important. You don't have to call it the Lowell Awards ceremony or anything, but I really felt we should do something.
That's good.
The other thing on the visits to the businesses, I think we started, at least I started a questionnaire, and then Ann, I think you had comments on it, but something like that we would say, how's business? What do you find is good about the city? What could you see that would be an improvement for your business and that kind of thing? So I think we had that list, at least a draft. Maybe I can forward it to you guys.
If you still have it, that'd be good to see it again.
Okay.
So in addition to filling in these tasks, then we need to break them down. So the tasks that are already in here, and maybe we can talk through if we think these make sense as the things that the IDA focuses on. And I think we're not going to finish this today, but what I would really like is if we go through these and we're comfortable with them, that we then maybe make homework of doing by email, breaking out each of these tasks into what would that look like over 3 years. And some of them, maybe we can't even start this until year 3, and that's fine because we only have so much capacity. But thinking about what are the pieces, and again, we're not going to get through all of that in this meeting, but I did get some response from some of the LDC members after our meeting yesterday of, gosh, this seems so overwhelming, but then I just thought about one task and broke it out, and here it is. And it's a good way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
So the biggest item on here was planning for and facilitating the redevelopment of Town and Country Plaza. Which it's a question of, is that a task for this group? I think having the IDA involved really makes sense because whatever happens there, it's gonna have a pilot is most likely. It's something where we have now, thanks to Ken Camera, actually made a connection with the owner. The owner is basically a REIT that buys strip malls, increases their utilization, and then sells them a few years later. So they're strip mall flippers, basically. they're not really in the, you
Development.
know, redevelopment
Yeah.
business. That doesn't mean we shouldn't be thinking about it. It would be nice if we had someone who was like, oh, we'd love to have ideas about how we could redevelop this. That's fine. They'll sell it to somebody else. You know, there are options. There are even crazy options, like could eminent domain it and make it a public-private partnership. I don't know that I see us going there, but thinking about the plan for where that goes. The roles for the IDA as a convener, possibly as a funder of a study, and as the one that would be providing incentives for development. Makes sense.
I mean, are there, I assume, and I don't know how much of an appetite for local development. I mean, it would be a big project, so I would assume it has to be someone from outside the area that would come in, my opinion.
Mhm.
And I know that there are there lists that we could purchase possibly of developers that do this type of thing that we could do outreach to? I mean,
Mhm.
I'm not gonna put an ad in the paper, but
Sure.
we could probably, I mean, that would be at least a positive step.
Right.
If that list is, you know, not too long, not too big or
Mhm.
something. And then we can analyze whether they've done this type of project and then just put up essentially an RFP
Mhm.
type of thing, or, you know,
Yeah.
that is something we can do. Obviously, we can't develop it. We can't,
Right.
you know, and I don't know if spending too much time kind of saying this is what could be done with it. I mean, that's really their business. I mean, I don't.
I don't think that we want to lock in
Correct.
something. One thing.
And it could be a verbal, it could be the presentation could include, this is what could happen.
Yeah.
This is what the city would like to do and this, or like to see, and this is how we could participate in facilitating and not just, you know, with what the pilots or whatever.
Right. And I think there is a role for feasibility, for market studies, that could demonstrate, you know, the market that's there, because I think that we tend to have this reputation, self-imposed reputation that we don't have a market, and I think we do. There's also been the suggestion, and I think Chris has talked about this, of having like a student competition just to demonstrate a bunch of possibilities.
That wouldn't cost anything, yeah.
Or it might cost a little bit to have an award, yeah.
Yeah.
And that could be interesting. So I am familiar with a few firms that have done what I would consider good examples of what could be done here. That I'd be happy to talk to. I think we need a little preparation before pitching to someone when it's, you know, it's not for sale.
Absolutely.
It is the zoning is there.
Interesting.
It's zoned with our downtown zone.
What's the difference between what you've done in rezoning and what they describe as a planned urban development?
So what we did is just apply the downtown 5-story zone. Just to the whole parcel. Usually a planned development would be a little finer grained, and it wouldn't have to be an existing zone. So I could imagine on this site 3 zones,
Yeah.
you know, different intensities, different kinds of development. The more diversity you can get in a site, the better. With what we've got, you could do kind of a pretty typical urban mixed use 5-story, you know, mixed use buildings that a big developer would do, you know, probably a few hundred units, retail on the ground floor, that kind of stuff. It's not a perfect match applying the downtown zone, like how that gets implemented, with you know, bringing in a street grid to it. There's some complications there. But I think it's doable. Like if we had a motivated developer who wanted to do something like that, I'll say the site's as big as downtown. It's like a second downtown
Yeah.
that we could have.
With a big project, a big idea like this, where the IDA plays a part in it and there's other entities at play, is there a space, or does it make sense to develop and just using the lingo, like a task force
Mhm.
that would be focused on that. So then you have a representative from the IDA so everybody's working together and we're not all like, oh, yes, we can offer pilots but there's no conversation with HWS, who could be a partner in there.
No, that's true.
Or, yeah. I mean, it'd be so cool, but, grab.
Yeah, I think that the question is who's the
Lead,
convener
right.
of that? And
You,
it could-
obviously.
It's all on.
It could be the IDA, it could be the city.
Yeah.
I mean, there are situations where this has been done by the university that's nearby. I don't see them having the capacity for that at this point in time. So I think if we want to see it move forward, it needs to be one of these groups. It could be the LDC as well.
There's some really interesting numbers in your meeting yesterday that this incoming class at HWS is 690 kids.
Right,
And that's a little bit inflated by the
Wells.
the Wells thing, but that's only 30, 690.
Hmm.
If Mark Guerin could continue this for a couple of years, you'll end up with the goal that they had, that they were backing down from of 2,200.
Yes.
It's like,
And that's compared to what, like, they were saying like 300 and some?
well, their
the
last
few
board's
years?
class was
2 years.
360 or 370 when things were not going well, but it's really good news for the community.
Yeah.
We were yesterday.
Right. And this is, I will say, this is a long-term
Yeah.
project. We're not talking about
It's
something
not your
that's gonna
quick
happen.
win category.
No. But it is a big vision for the future. But I would think that this is, a 10, 15, 20-year project.
Be a great
A couple of things. When you have a current owner that's not interested, do they have because if I had a developer client that wanted that site, they would want to know how much do I pay for it?
Yeah.
Is there any indication of what they would sell it for, or is there any conversation with them, or do they offer that, or is
They
it for
haven't-
sale? I don't really know.
Yeah, they haven't offered that. They have said that their business model is to buy a place and hold it for 5 or 6 years and sell it. So that makes me think we should be working towards what happens then. I mean, their business model isn't get it ready for redevelopment. It's get it ready to be sold, just in better shape as what it is as a strip mall.
I'm sure they're gonna market to try to fill the stores and stuff.
Yeah,
But,
right.
They're actually buying it, this.
They bought it from.
They
the
bought it
bank.
already?
From the bank.
Bank.
Yeah.
Oh,
Picked
great.
it up from also.
They weren't aware when Kenny got a hold of them that you had changed the zoning and everything.
Right,
That's how uninvolved they are in the
Yes.
property.
Yeah.
right.
Do you have a site survey, boundary?
Yeah, I think we do.
Okay, well, I've been involved with a couple of PUDs over the years that developers had wanted to do high intensity in one area and preservation in another. And that was a good selling point for neighbors, that kind of thing, because traffic runoff, sanitary sewer service, water lines, that kind of things, all those things need to be known. So if you can get me some information, and I'd be happy to whip together some concepts, but it's the kind of thing we used to do.
HWS also owns the land directly south of it. It's not great land, but if I was doing a site plan for it, I would assume that the colleges would be very interested in
Participating, yeah.
in participating.
It's low there, right?
It's
wet.
low, it's wet, but
Yeah.
it's,
Right.
real men know what to do with that stuff. I don't know.
Sure.
If I may, what's the total acreage of that site?
Oh, what is it?
Even approximate?
I can get it for you just a second.
Yes,
What's your guess?
8 acres.
Let's see.
It's my dartboard, yes.
She's usually pretty close.
I was gonna guess 10, but
He's already looking at it though, so.
no, I'm not there yet.
Remember, they broke off
Oh, and they were just working on
they got rid of, they
McDonald's.
broke up McDonald's and that's.
Oh, they did?
Yeah. McDonald's had a long-term lease and planning board just did a subdivision for it, so. I don't think they've sold it yet, but that's
it's probably not reflected on Encore.
No, not yet.
Not gonna be there anymore.
What's that?
They're getting rid of McDonald's.
The McDonald's parcel was leased, the land was leased back to the bank at this point.
But is McDonald's staying? Not that.
Oh,
I
yeah,
care
yeah,
about
oh, yeah, no,
McDonald's,
they're buying.
That's what, yeah, that was
I
the
mean,
impression.
the surveyor, the engineer said that there's no firm commitment yet,
Yeah.
but that's why they asked for the subdivision.
Yeah.
So without McDonald's removed is 18.5 acres.
18, so is
Let's go
it
back.
your two guesses combined?
Yeah, well, that's what I meant. I did the north half, he did.
Ah, got it, yeah. What teamwork,
We were working together.
yeah.
And
Yeah.
what types, do you have an idea of what types of uses you'd be looking at?
So it was zoned with our downtown zone, which is mixed use, in a traditional Main Street format. Residential and office over retail is essentially the kind of thing that they'd be looking for.
Okay.
Buildings that front the front streets, you would have to have a street grid imposed on it. A lot of requirements that are very kind of traditional downtown, parking behind. I do think because it's not in the TUD, which is what exempts from parking requirements, we would have to address that. It's hard to build good urbanism with.
It's actually quite a bit of parking behind the building too,
Yeah,
but
You think
it's not used.
do you think it's a scraper for somebody?
that's a question. I mean, I always like to see things done incrementally. Can you start with buildings on the front of the parcel? There's a lot more parking there than is needed, so, do you need to wipe away what's there to start? In 50 years, I don't see that kind of single story large
Yeah.
footprint being the way forward for us, but that doesn't mean that has to be the first thing you do.
Wait, so are we saying then, I feel like there seems to be some consensus and excitement about this, so does the IDA then, are we keeping this on our list as a big item, or is this something we're gonna explore further and dive into? That's kind of what we're trying to settle on today, right?
Yeah,
Sounds like it.
David, I can start doing some poking around too at the firm, with our commercial real estate group and just see if anybody's got anything in mind. We've got a couple sizable projects going on right now with other IDAs. So we can poke around there as well. And we have a couple, again, with a site this size, it's likely, if anybody were to come in and do a multi-phased type project, we are also exploring, kind of sort of creative financing that we can do kind of in those first couple of phases to try to help a developer at least get going. So I'll follow up with that as things kind of progress.
great.
And it could just be, part of that RFP package of, what we could offer.
That's great.
Help us get started, that's for sure.
The other kind of ongoing tasks listed were facilitating the creation of market rate senior housing, which could be involved in that project.
Exactly.
It could be involved with other kind of parcels that we're promoting, creating local incentives to promote middle housing development.
So I had a question on that one, like,
Yep.
is
Yeah.
can we do that? What, as far as creating local incentives, what would that be? What does that even look like?
Yeah, so we can offer pilot incentives for multifamily housing. That's something that IDAs are getting into. It's something that we used to not do.
Right,
It used to be unclear if that was allowed or not, but now I think it's pretty well established that IDAs can incentivize multifamily housing, something the county IDA is working on. We can't incentivize single-family housing.
right.
But in our market, our housing study the stuff that Gary and I have done with reaching out to businesses so far, they're all saying one of our biggest barriers to getting employees is housing here,
Mhm.
housing and childcare. So we can offer incentives in that way. You know, we could also look at the land that we own for that, for example, on Lake Street. The next one we had listed was work on an effort to create shovel-ready sites for industry, business, and housing.
So there's still a parcel, actually, I think there's two parcels over at the industrial park, one that Ryan owns.
Yep.
Ryan Walk, and I think there's another one that the city's using, by the
Right.
railroad tracks. And I assume they're still gonna be using that, although I would think that we could, if we wanted it back, we could probably take it back.
Yeah, so there's two parcels that are there that are next to
Right.
each other.
And then the one that Nardozzi had, it wasn't part of the closing. It's not across from Hinkle.
Mhm.
And that was also fairly small, needed quite a bit of, it was very low, needle fill. That's over by the housing development there. So that's also on Gates. The old market basket was taken down. And the transfer station's being taken apart, so that parcel is halfway decent size.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's a little sloped, but good, and and of course the foundry.
Mhm.
So there's really no reason why we couldn't actively, I mean, that's industrial.
Mhm.
And that's what I think we should be involved in.
So the foundry was cleaned up to restricted residential standards, so it could be
Okay,
multifamily housing as well.
okay, so that's, okay,
And it's not in an industrial zone anymore.
okay.
So I think probably housing is most likely for that one.
Okay, but again, how's the city doing on putting this, I know they had the sale of some of the properties there a month ago or
Yes.
something. I know
So
that,
we had an auction of all the smallest parcels.
right,
Went well, everything sold, I thought, for good prices, nothing was $500.
yeah,
And most things went to people who are in the business of doing something with it, not to a neighbor to have more yard or something like that. That's a waste. So, and including Habitat for Humanity bought a lot that's subdividable, which is great. Although we apparently spent some time unsubdividing it recently, which they'll probably re-subdivide, which is fine.
just keep surveyors in business.
Yes, yes. There are several other spots left. So things that I withheld from the auction, OEO, the foundry, two substantial size lots on Middle Street across the street from each other. One of them is the old DPW garage space. And then lots on Crystal Street. There's a bunch of small lots on Crystal and Maryland. Maryland is just a paper street, but Crystal is off of North. That I think is marketable to get a small housing development there. I'm working on RFP. Well, some of them are RFPs.
By the city, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Some of them are RFPs, some of them are RFQs. So the first one is OEO. And I guess that's on our agenda, but I'll just skip to it.
Yeah, it's on the city. IDA is.
Yeah. My plan with that is to have an RFQ for a preferred developer. So I've seen this go a lot of different ways, and what I don't want to do is have someone come in with a proposal before they've really worked through the process and we're choosing. So I'll back up. A process that I watched and was dismayed with in the past. A government owned a building. They wanted it redeveloped. They did a request for proposals. 6 companies came in with a proposal, right? A fleshed out design for a building. they had this big process. They made them come back with improvements to their design like 5 times. All these companies spent a lot of money. They were making a decision based on how many parking spaces and which design people liked the most and how many units you were getting, all this stuff. Then they chose a developer. It was very contentious. You know, everyone ended up upset, but they chose someone. And then that person went to the planning board and the historic board and redesigned the building 4 more times. What they ended up with was nothing like what they chose in the request for proposals process. You know, just hundreds of thousands of dollars wasted. The project was delayed by years. It actually ended up caught up in COVID and was delayed even further. I want to avoid that. I think for this site, because it's so key in downtown, what I think would be best is if we choose a preferred developer, right? We give someone this status of you're the preferred developer that we're going to work with. They host community meetings. They come through the planning board and get to a point where they have an approved project and we have an agreed upon relationship. And then they purchase from us so that we work out the project together rather than asking them, you know, come with your complete idea of what it is, because we know we're actually not going to get that. And I don't want people to promise stuff that they can't deliver because that doesn't help us. But we have developers that are interested in it and we need like some way to move forward. And I think that's the best way.
So are you saying then in that scenario, you would, or we would, whoever would select one person just because we know enough about?
Yeah, so they're gonna present their way they would approach the project, their experience, other projects that they've done, kind of what they're thinking and what they can offer, and then
Then you make it.
It's kind of like we chose the engineering study company. They each came in with an RFP.
Yeah,
They
yeah.
responded and some of the presentations are much stronger and
Mhm.
helped us make the menu work.
Yeah.
And I think that's a good process.
How does it differ from a PUD where you would still outline the characteristics you want
So
and would approve?
yeah, that could be an outcome of this process is that the preferred developer that we work with says the zoning on this spot doesn't work for what we like to do. Instead, we'd like to work with the city on a PUD. You know, they could work on variances or they could work on a PUD if they felt like the zoning didn't work. Things that I can imagine is, you know, I know there's a lot of concern about the view shed there. And we have kind of just a flat box. You know, if they wanted to work on a PUD, we could give them, you know, you can do more here in exchange for doing less here to get, instead of it being like this, you know, it's taller, but it has cutaway or something like that. There'd be flexibility there, but no one would come in with a proposal, you know, and a offer without having that stuff worked out first. So I think our best situation is a collaborative approach there.
Can we do to help that? I mean, sounds like it's all in your department as big as.
Yeah. I think that one, you know, incentives are gonna come into it as well. I think,
Well, that's at the end.
Yeah.
That would be when there's a lot of work to get to that point. I mean, just to get the
Yeah.
RFP together would be. But is there anything that, I mean, again, we're all volunteers. What can we do to?
I think on this one, getting the word out if you know of people, but other than that, participating when we get the developer in the process.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Sure. Make them welcome.
Yeah.
Okay.
And this is IDA owned property that we're referring to?
No, it's city owned.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. I mean, there are a few properties we're involved with, but they're very small, like on Lake Street there.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so we do have properties that we do directly own. That's the other question of, do we want to be moving those forward at the same time, which we could, or we could continue to hold on them. The Lake Street one is, I think, probably the most interesting.
Sure. I would say we should put it all together with the city stuff. I mean, the fact that we own it, I don't think the marketing approach is any different.
Sure.
I mean, just the closing's different.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. All All right, so I guess our homework is to actually fill out this template based on the discussions we just had.
Yeah.
Of the various, I think you've touched them all.
I didn't get to the last one, which was redevelopment of the American Can Complex, which is a big ongoing kind of,
And well, but we've got that started. See, I see
Yeah.
that as it's already started. It's good to put a timeline on here of what we want, but with the CNS report
yeah,
a month away.
Yep.
I think, and that might require some committee work on our part.
Mhm.
And maybe on the committee, it doesn't have to be just members of
Yeah.
this group. It could be, city council member, it could be someone, others, that
yeah.
have some
From,
interesting feedback.
yeah, and from my perspective, I'd move that right back up to a few big items, like it's the.
I see that as
that's
the
huge
low-hanging
thing
fruit.
for- Yeah.
Yeah, that's a quick one, really.
I see it in,
Sorry.
It's long term, but it's.
I see it in both categories,
Yeah.
right? I think that we should think about pulling out some quick wins there as well. For example, one of the outcomes of my intern's work over this summer is that there's a growing public art club at HWS that's looking for places to do projects. We should invite them in to paint some walls in the GEDC and bring some life to it. That's a kind of small, quick thing
Sure.
that we could do. Hosting some events there is a kind of a quick win kind of thing we can do. So we can think about, we have the big task of like, we need to make that building either work for us or work for someone else. Make it marketable, make it stop leaking, make it sustainable financially, and also make it fulfill the purpose, if we keep it, of growing our economy, growing small businesses, serving the community. But are there small, quick things we can do out of that? I hope out of this larger study, we can look again at the idea of, what changes do we need to make
Yes.
to make the space useful, other than, it not leaking and things like that, but.
Is there still a study being done on the P&L, that project? Or any,
So the study that we're doing right now is looking at the physical building. What does it need to be intact? As far as, the finances of it, that will come in, but that's not the main focus. It's an engineering study, so it's looking at the physical plan.
it's not looking at things like what we're spending, what we're getting, and
We look,
some estimate of your time and effort.
No, that's not the purpose of that study. That is something that obviously we are thinking about, and the goal, we know that we can't fully lease a building that has rooms that are wet. So in order to make the finances work, we have to understand what's it gonna cost. But then actually doing that stuff, we have to get into, is there a return on this? Does it make sense? What grant funding is there?
Roof issues generally. We don't know.
environmental, there's
Yeah.
asbestos, there's,
Right.
I mean, the list just goes on and
Yeah.
on, all the systems. Do we ever even, part of this, what was the breakout of the electricity, right? Wasn't there, like, we didn't even know where those connections were coming in or something, so there's just a lot.
Because it's a agglomeration of buildings,
Right.
there's, I think, 3 different sewer lines that serve different parts of the building. There's electricity that comes from different directions. So having a really, and we have a staff person who has been in the building forever and knows a lot of that stuff, but we need to get it out of his head into something that we all can understand and invest in. So to your question about, profit and loss of the building, that's our goal, is getting there, but that's not what this study.
I understand. It says, I think from a city council point of view, should be, it's been 40 years or so since American Can was making stuff there. And it's got a history of cost and benefit. At some point, when you take the big picture, you may come to a different conclusion about the future, but
And I think part of what the study is going to support is whether or not
physically,
it's something that we could do through grants. I mean, we probably can get grants to do some of this stuff,
Mhm.
but then we have to have some matching money and we have to figure out where that comes from.
Right,
You know,
right.
which may disqualify, you know, even if it's a $20 million project, we have to come up with 4 million. We can't do that. You know, we don't have a way of doing that. I don't think. I mean, I don't know where it would come from.
That may be a question Stephen could be involved in if there's
Right.
bonding that
But-
we can
but
do. I mean, that's
kind
the
of like
question with a lot of that
ability
stuff.
Part of all this is kind of based on, okay, this is what, and then some numbers can be put to that, and then we can start
Right.
to actually develop some sort of idea of,
Right.
of what could be done.
Yeah, and if there's stuff that, again, if we were getting a big grant, but we had a substantial match that we had to make, if we could borrow that, we would need to be able to show we have a plan of how the rent's going
Cash
to cover
flow
that, yeah.
Carry that borrowing, yeah, so. And then the first question is, do we have the wherewithal to manage all this? You know,
Yeah.
you know, if is the IDA the right owner of this, or should be in private hands? And can a private company, can we market it so a private company would be interested in it? So it would be a similar packaging thing like you're talking about the
Yeah,
Oh, yeah.
OEO and the, and some of the other vacant land, you know? It's kind of a mess, and we know what it is. We know what the mess is incrementally. We just haven't, you know,
The big picture.
the whole thing needs to be.
Yeah.
And this looks like we'll have a comprehensive type thing.
Yeah.
One of the reasons we picked this engineering firm is because they have a fairly strong grant writing department, a couple, 3 people or something like that could help us with the next step if we decide to go there. Anyway,
yeah, or the many next steps. That's kind of part of it, is we
Yeah,
may
right.
package it as 10 different projects that we pursue.
yeah, there's
And,
different approaches. Right?
Yeah.
Right.
and the strategy may be that we work in one area and make it really good and then slowly expand. We may not be able to do it all at once. Or we may find that it doesn't make any sense to do anything.
Okay. We're running a little bit over here. I think we're pretty close. We're all set with this strategic plan at this point. Any questions, Lowell? I'd like to include you if you. Okay,
No, everything's good.
okay.
Lot to do.
Quick update on the diner.
Yes, so Jerry has decided that the Lake Street parcel doesn't work for him. I think I said that last time, and he's kind of toying with 2 ideas. And I'm trying to get him to focus on one so we can move forward, but he's still somewhat interested in the driveway to the cell tower on Forge Ave, which we own. He's also expressed interest, and we're looking into, it would be something that would have to go to council for approval, but the grass area on our lot on Main Street next to Beef and Brew.
Oh,
I met him there, and just so you know. And we paced off the dimensions of the footprint that he would want. No parking, of course, except on the street. I thought it was much steeper than it is when you're on site. Because his building is so narrow and long, it seems to fit pretty well. And you would have to do some retaining wall type of effort, some grading, some fill, and then a retaining wall. And then another steep slope down to the city's parking lot. But it's doable. I was kind of optimistic after I walked it with him. You could put his diner there.
I think parking would be an issue for him, but if.
So
if the
there's-
Street's okay,
There's on-street parking there,
On-street.
and the rest of
Down
that
below.
lot is public parking.
but that would be down, right?
Yeah,
Yeah,
There's a.
It's not handicapped accessible from that
Yeah.
lower lot. I mean, it's a steep walk up the driveway that's
that
there.
is, yeah.
Yeah.
You've already
But
looked
you
into
can
it.
walk it. He would have to figure a handicapped accessible walkway
Okay.
around his building to a rear entrance.
Sure.
So he can do that.
Interesting.
Okay, so that's ongoing.
yeah, and that would be out of our hands if he wanted to go with the
Okay.
city, but if he decides that that's too difficult and he's still interested in the Forge Ave one, that would come back to us.
Sure. We've already discussed the OEO property.
Yep.
To your satisfaction, okay. The Stivers closing of the winery, the sliver of land behind the winery.
Yeah, so I'm working with Stephen on that. Just working through the paperwork. We don't really have any choices or decisions to make. We have a lease with him. The lease includes a purchase option. So just working through the paperwork on that and expecting a closing early next month.
Okay, any new business? The,
You were looking for easy wins, and I don't know if this fits. I'm not sure who it fits with, so, but we've been having difficulty with young men, mostly men, but some women too, who get out of school, get jobs, doing a good job, but have real transportation problems to get there, like Hinkle. So I'm making an arrangement with the local bank to create a fund that will allow them, these are kids with no credit rating at all. And to indemnify the bank to a certain amount to take on these loans for kids, to get them in their first car and to start their own credit history. And we're gonna do it. We have the kids, we have the bank, but, and I think it's something like the bank may ask me for $30,000 to sit there. They have already agreed, though, that anything, the payments that come in from the kids will fund that and grow that fund for the community. So it's all coming together, and I don't want the Boys and Girls Club to be the heart of everything that happens to kids in Geneva. And I think this one has business and employment layers. So I just throw it out there for somebody looking to have an easy win. I'd name it for somebody else, but to get these kids being able to meet their job requirements. Some have to drive to Phelps, Seneca Falls, sometimes all the way to Rochester.
Have the companies been engaged in
No.
that?
No, I haven't. That's why I was throwing it out to let you guys know about it. We're gonna do it.
Yeah.
It's kind of an easy win. And because they're gonna put the profits back into it, it could come to a point where we don't have to do anything except qualify the kids. To get their cards and go, but I just throw that out. In case any of your heads know who would like to be in on that with us, but.
Do you think it would be helpful? Are you using grant money to do it, or you just have operating?
I live on grant
Thanks for that.
money, so all the money I have, it comes from grants one way or the other. Some of it I peel off. In this case, I probably would fundraise our portion. Let's say we're gonna do 30 and I'm gonna get 15 from us and 15 from others.
Okay.
I'll, do something like that just to get it going. But this guy was approached in the parking lot out here, two kids who were sitting around trying to figure out, they were gone to a bank and already been told they have no credit.
Yeah.
So so we've been working on this with the banks for a while. And I realized we'd have to get going on it. Another generation of kids, screw up their work history, everything else. They're good. They're showing up. They're doing good work.
Yeah, that's great because there's so many predatory used car related loans. I mean, that's the new
The iron
subprime lending is subprime car lending that people are getting trapped in.
Anyway, just I don't think it'll be a hard push, but I'd rather it not, when I can embed these things in the community, not just in the club.
Yeah.
They're more sustainable.
Well, I wonder if it would also help with grant funding either now or in the future to say, this isn't just the Boys and Girls Club, it's
That's exactly.
a IDA.
Yeah.
Maybe that'll-
Partners always make grants go.
Yeah.
Anyway.
I think it's awesome. And I think involving the companies where these kids are getting these jobs involved, getting in touch with their HR and, yeah, I think it's great. Thank you.
We'll try.
Yeah.
okay, so we're going to convene a nominating committee and a budget committee or audit, the audit committee, and have that all prepared for our annual meeting coming up in October.
Yes.
Should we just put something on the record that we are moving forward with, our CD expired and we're moving forward with the 6 months
Right,
on that?
we'll do the 6 months, okay.
Okay.
And, yeah. I think it's over 2,000. I think we told them we were waiting for this meeting. but-
Yeah, and I verified with them that they're we're still good on
Okay.
the quote they gave us.
You heard that, Lowell, that we have,
Yeah.
I think it's $100,000 at Lions Bank, and we're gonna renew the CD at 5% for 6 months.
Yeah, we talked about that before. That's fine.
Correct. Yeah, we needed to get the rates, and we did.
Oh,
So
okay, okay.
I think we're good now. Yeah, we talked about it at the executive.
Mhm.
All right. Anything else? All set? All right. Like a motion to.
Can't,
Yeah, we don't need a motion because
Yeah.
we're not gonna be in a meeting.
All right, fine. So the meeting
You were
Just
not.
didn't really happen.
didn't happen. We're not here. All right, thank you.
Hey, how's the rain there?
All right.
It's raining.
It's raining pretty hard.
They say all day.
Yeah, we're delaying coming home until later because it's bad here too in New Jersey.
Oh, New Jersey, yeah.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Yeah, say hi to Debbie, huh?
Yeah. Nice to meet you, Chris.
All right. Very
All
good.
right, thanks, guys. See
Thank
ya.
you Steve, for being on. We'll see you later.
Yep, take care, everyone.
Oh, Steve, while you're here, before you go, the Bob Stivers stuff. I've sent some stuff before. Do you want me to just package it all up again and send it?
Yeah, if you can, just so that I can take a look and make sure that, whatever the deed and everything going out is the correct, and all that stuff. So yeah, whatever you have, just compile it all and then send it. And then that way it's at the top of my list.
Okay. And let me know what
I sat there.
is within our scope of work and what isn't.
Okay.
Think of anybody else. that would be
Unfortunately,
really
the contract
There's so much interest left.
is really difficult it's really hard on us. It says that we're gonna do a lot of things like provide the full,
Yeah.
it's, I would prefer that we just did a quick claim, but it's not that. It's a full, warranty deal and all that stuff. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
let me know if we're exceeding what you can do, or if we need to be contracting on something else. We don't get a lot out of the deal. I think we get $5,000 because it's been a lease where all the lease payments are applicable to the sale.
Yeah, yeah.
And that's the one thing left on my plate is making sure that we actually do know all of the lease payments that we've received, because a bunch of them were delayed and some of them were less than they were supposed to be. So I'm working on that table, but I believe that he's already paid more than the purchase price. So there was a minimum, you pay at least $5,000 at closing. That
Okay.
was that, but
Okay. All right. Yeah. Whenever you get a chance, just shoot all that stuff over and I'll take a look at it.
okay, thanks so much.
All right. Thanks.